This week on the show, eBay fails to wow at eBay Open. Etsy's got some dodgy marketing message going out on some listings, and I sell a few more books. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 266 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. If you're new here, and there have been a few new faces over the last couple of weeks, my name is Ryan, and I am a full-time reseller specializing in vintage books. And this show is all about the flip life. I try to bring you the most important and relevant reselling news each and every Monday morning. If you're a member, you will get this at least a day early, so consider doing that as well. I would appreciate the support. With that bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's just get stuck right in to some reselling news.
News updates.
So eBay had their annual fest, their eBay Open, and there was a lot of announcements, but really, I think most people left feeling a bit underwhelmed. And as we're going to get into from what Liz over at Value Added Resource said, a little wondering where the beef was. Her headline for day one was eBay Open 2024 Day One. Where's the new stuff? Lots of announcements of things, and this has been kind of the trend. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. These events have become much more about rediscussing and hyping things that they've already kind of announced and have been working on, and this unfortunately was no exception. eBay Open 2024 opened with a keynote presentation, which was heavy on platitudes about how much eBay loves its sellers, but it'll take more than an uninspiring speech and stale announcements of new but not really new features to keep sellers coming back for more, she said. The theme for this year, which was repeated by several presenters, seems to be eBay, we win when you win. So that is true. That's something I've been saying on the show for a long time. The more they support their sellers, the better their business will be and the better they will do. That's not a message that seems to have resonated super well over there just yet, but hopefully they're on the path to figuring it out. Of course, she noted it would not be an eBay event without glitches. Many sellers reported that they were kicked out of the main session and had trouble signing back in, receiving an error message saying their ability to participate had been, quote unquote, restricted. So eBay continues to have some problems implementing live shows. You may recall a couple of months ago, they attempted to do some kind of live presentation for a charity auction of Elton John stuff, which was also plagued with glitches. So they've got some issues with their presentation stuff. I don't recall experiencing really any problems back at like the Summer Seller Check-in, but those events are a lot smaller. There's a lot less participants. eBay Open is their big one, and a lot of people show up for that. And it sounds like at least day one was fraught with some technical difficulties. There were announcements and discussions of what eBay was calling new features, but as I said at the outset, a lot of them were essentially recaps of things that they've already been working on, in some cases for quite some time. They talked about the best offer experience. Jamie, the CEO, said this new best offer experience will require all U.S. buyers to provide a form of payment for placing an order. That's been something they've been talking about for quite some time. It has slowly kind of rolled out to all buyers and sellers. I'm still seeing a few instances where that is not the case, but by and large, this has been pretty consistent over the last couple of months. It's unclear, this article pointed out, if that means that eBay will be removing the option from sellers to set their own requirements and decide for themselves if they wish to require immediate payment on offers. But if eBay does remove that option, history suggests sellers will not be very happy about it. Probably the biggest issue with the immediate payment option is for people who want to send multiple offers on multiple items. The system as it's set up right now essentially forces them to pay for all of those things separately. It doesn't allow a seller an opportunity to invoice for those things, and you end up as a seller having to refund some overpayment on shipping. I don't know. I don't know that there's a way to solve that. I'm not a tech guy. It seems like something that they could figure out, but it continues to plague the offers experience. They also said there will soon be new consequences for non-paying bidders, but failed to provide any details about what those consequences will be, leaving sellers skeptical, especially after the recent change to extend offer acceptance timeframe to 4 days with no notice. I did have a couple of sellers that mentioned to me that when they checked their offers, they were not seeing that. Their offers were still going out at 2 days. So again, this may be one of those things where eBay was trying a limited run of this with some, but not all sellers. I did not check mine when I sent offers this morning. The ones I sent earlier in the week were definitely going for 4 days. So let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify what you're seeing on the offer experience. They continue to thrash about the updated design of various pages. They talked about the latest effort to reimagine search. But when the new experience was rolled out in August with promises of a more seamless, intuitive, and reach design, savvy users struggled to find anything actually new or innovative in the update. eBay Live has expanded to include clothing and fashion sellers, with VP GM Global Verticals Ashish Chabra saying they will also be introducing a new and improved live hub to better showcase sellers' live events. This is another one that has apparently not rolled out to all sellers, clearly has not rolled out to all categories, and continues to be plagued by some technical issues. Another one that they talked about that has been talked about previously, eBay International Shipping. Combined Shipping Chief Product Officer Eddie Garcia held out combined shipping in the eBay International Shipping program as a prime example of eBay's innovative tools and experiences to help sellers, but didn't mention that it's been almost a year-long rollout that still isn't quite working in many scenarios. If you're a seller that's experienced any issues with combined shipping on the International Shipping program, let us know in the comments down below. But this has been an ongoing problem. I guess I don't really understand why it's that difficult to implement. All the stuff is going to the same place, the same country. I don't know why it would relate to things like VAT and so on, but it has been a real pain point for eBay. The AI background enhancer. This was Garcia's other example. The AI powered background enhancer is a little fresher, they said, having been introduced just this past June, but they did talk about that. They also talked about a simplified listing flow. VP Seller Experience Xiaodi Zhang, I believe is how it's pronounced, previewed a new simplified listing flow for the eBay app experience, but her comments about the shipping experience and the listing flow received a strong response from an experienced seller in the eBay community. And I'm going to read you this input. Wow, eBay got this wrong. She said, I would be remiss not to mention shipping today. First, we are simplifying shipping related decisions for you during the listing flow. We are pre-selecting the best options for your items so you can list without having to worry about shipping options. Our goal is to reduce the number of clicks as much as possible in order for you to list even faster. Now, I'm going to editorialize here because that's what I do on this channel. I don't like that at all. I don't want those decisions taken out of my hands. Number one, I understand from the standpoint of one of the biggest, I see it on a lot of the message boards and Facebook groups. Shipping is the hardest thing to wrap your head around on eBay. It's very difficult to get set up correctly, but it is also very expensive if you get it wrong. And the eBay estimates, by many people's anecdotal information, are a lot of times not correct, which leaves you in a situation as a seller where you're going to be on the hook for additional shipping charges because you will not have collected enough or paid enough based on those estimates. So I would rather have it be a little bit difficult and have it be correct than have it be quick but wrong. The seller said sellers do want less clicks. That's correct, but you're doing it in the wrong area. When it comes to setting up shipping, I hear from numerous sellers about eBay's pre-filled estimates are costing them money because the estimates are not good enough to accommodate the items they're selling. There's no substitute shortcut for a seller entering actual weight and dimensions when they're new to shipping and don't know what they're doing. And that would be true even if you are not new and you do know what you're doing. It can be an incredibly expensive mistake if you don't get your shipping right. Less clicks in Seller Hub, please. The new overview menu is awful because it takes 6 clicks just to filter by one single subcategory, they went on. One other thing that I've noticed in the solds and unsolds in the app used to be, if you were looking at your unsolds, there was a button that just said edit, and you could select ones and then either relist or delete or whatever. Now there's a button that says Actions, which takes you to a drop-down menu, which only has one choice, which is to edit. Why bury it there? I don't, maybe there's going to be more features added to that in the future, but now you've added an extra click. I've got to click on Action to get to edit, to then either delete or relist, when I used to just have to click edit and I would go right there. It makes no sense to me at all why they've done that. Anyway, they talked about the AI-powered bulk listing tool. I featured that a couple of weeks ago in an episode, so I'm not going to rehash that. That is essentially at this point only for trading card sellers. They talked about a AI listing creator using only an image. Still, they've been talking about that for nearly a year. There's a very small beta on that, but that is not ready for prime time, despite the fact that competitors like Depop have already rolled something like that out. Then they talked about Seller Hub transformative changes, talking about changes to the cosmetics and some of the information you see. Sellers have largely been unhappy with many of the changes because they lack some of the detail, and they're, to be fair, a little bit more cumbersome to navigate. She also put in a plug for the new ads dashboard, which has also been criticized by some for removing transparency and granularity from the promoted listings management experience. They also talked about a new view item page, which is also, you're getting a theme here, something they have been talking about for a while. They started their segment by talking about this thing that was unveiled a year ago, but she noted it's very telling and, in her opinion, very disingenuous that the screenshot they showed on the screen while she was talking is completely absent any of the many promoted listing ads that eBay currently stuffs onto each and every page. If you've searched for something recently on eBay and looked, there are dozens, sometimes hundreds of ads that show up on that page. There is, and I will link to this article and all of these, of course, in the show notes and the video description below, so you can go look at these yourself. But they have an image here of the screen that she showed as part of her presentation, and then they have an image of what a real one looks like with all these extra listings showing on the page. They did also talk about AI discovery tools eBay has created to enhance the buying experience, like Shop the Look and Explore. Again, neither of those is new either. Then they went from those presentations into the breakout sessions. I did not attend any of this for reasons I talked about last week. I talked to one seller who said that the breakout sessions were actually pretty good. Another that said they were not so much. And as I've talked about over the last couple of weeks, going back to my interview with David Lee from Mercari, in these kind of gated environments, eBay controls the flow of information, and they control how much time is allowed for Q&A and which questions they choose to answer. And that leaves sellers wanting more. And that continues to be a problem with kind of most of these events. So that is kind of the recap of day one. Pretty disappointing by most sellers' accounts. Day two, frankly, was not a whole lot better. eBay Open 2024 Day 2 keynote and a big announcement for the 30th anniversary event. That is actually something that was big, new news. Chief Marketing Officer Adrian Fung kicked off eBay Open 2024 Day 2 with a keynote on eBay's marketing efforts, saying eBay is working to meet buyers where they're at across online and real-world partnerships and campaigns. They showed a preview video that highlights some of the new ads. eBay Things People Love, a new marketing campaign featuring eBay sellers and messaging aimed at bringing Gen Z to the platform to shop for rare, vintage, pre-loved fashion and beyond. Sellers were by and large pretty excited about that, from my understanding. They did also highlight some of eBay's key sponsored content partnerships with Vogue, Formula One Racing, The Athletic, and more, a strategy which we have discussed previously on the show that has brought some controversy regarding media ethics and integrity. So kind of a mixed bag of opinions on that. The Vice President and GM of Global Payments and Financial Services, Evriti Mittal, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, announced an expansion of eBay's partnership with Liberis to provide a new funding program called Flexible Cash Advance Financing. This is new, and this actually has the potential to be pretty cool. eBay has teamed up with Liberis, a leading embedded finance platform, to expand its seller capital program here in the U.S. with the introduction of Flexible Cash Advance. The new option provides sellers with a quick access to larger and even more flexible funding to help expand their business. Sellers can advance funds anywhere from $5,000 up to $2 million. They have the flexibility to unlock even more capital as they pay, but only pay for what they use. A recent report over on payments found that about 70% of small businesses have less than 4 months of cash to cover operating expenses. With this flexible cash advance, sellers can use the funding to purchase more inventory or handle unexpected expenses and seasonal fluctuations throughout the year. You can apply just once to secure an approved capital amount through the program and get advances on demand without undergoing the application process multiple times, which is pretty rad. This can be a critical safety net for sellers that need access to financing anytime. This comes just months after eBay first announced the partnership with Liberis to offer a different program, the Business Cash Advance product, which some sellers are grateful for, a solution to replace the previously available PayPal working capital loan, and others that were alarmed by the high cost of just taking regular financing out with Liberis. So this is a brand new program, same company, different setup. It is not currently available. I checked the site earlier today, and there's nothing there just yet about it. So this is something that's going to be coming that they did announce at eBay Open that's actually pretty solid. VP GM Global Advertising Alex Kazim was up next, giving a brief overview of different types of promoted listing ad products and announcing Promoted Offsite is expanding to more channels beyond Google, which will include Bing. I don't know how many people use Bing. I know there are some, but if they're expanding it to more and not changing anything else about the program, that's a win for anybody who uses that program. They did show a slick video presentation about the new ads dashboard experience, continuing their, what she said, over on value-added resource, tone-deaf talking points about intuitive design and advanced tech, while still ignoring questions and concerns about the lack of transparency and granularity. We talked about last week, for instance, that the widget on the seller hub for advertising was returning essentially different information every time you refreshed, most of which was not correct. I think, again, kind of like with the shipping thing I talked about, most sellers would rather have the correct information in maybe a less glitzy looking manner than to have incorrect or invalid information. So there you go. She goes on to say, if you're wondering why sellers are growing increasingly hostile toward promoted listings, all you need to do is turn off your ad blocker and check out what they have turned eBay into. We just kind of talked about it. The view item page can have over 300 ad slots on it. I talked a couple of weeks ago about how cluttered I felt the eBay listing, the item pages has become. Next to no information about your actual item, and then dozens, if not hundreds, of other competing listings. I understand why eBay is doing it, because it prompts more clicks and more activity and theoretically maybe more purchases. But as an individual seller, man, it's no bueno. I don't want people seeing 200 or 300 other items. So you can let me know again in the comments what you think about that. But there has been a lot of pushback on that program. And that essentially wrapped up day 2. I don't think there's anything else in this. There's a long thing about feedback removal policy changes, which were rolled out earlier this month. For my money, they're still not working. I had an experience this past week. I had a 12-page booklet about an art exhibition, which was advertised as a booklet, shown with just 12 pages, listed specifically in the item specifics as having 12 pages. The buyer left negative feedback saying the item was a pamphlet and was worthless. I contacted eBay to see if I could have that removed because the item was exactly as described. It was a 12-page booklet. I don't know what the buyer thought they were getting, and eBay declined to remove the feedback, saying that the item was not as described. So there you go. The last big announcement was a big in-person event being planned for eBay's 30th anniversary next year. They are going to have eBay Open live in person sometime next fall. So they're excited to get everyone together in person next year. For folks who remember eBay Live or our eBay Open events in the past, we hope to recapture that magical feeling again next year. They will continue to offer a virtual version of the event, so everyone can still attend and follow along, just like you have for the last several years. And they'll be sharing more details about their plans in the new year. But for now, they hope you're as excited as they are. So you can let me know if you watched or attended the eBay open sessions. Let me know what you thought of it. All of the recaps that I've read essentially say the same thing, that it was more or less recapping things that had already been discussed. There was not a lot of new information, and I just feel like that's probably not the best use of that time. Now, again, to be fair, I'd rather have them fix all the stuff that's broken. Come to us next year and say, this didn't work right and we fixed it, and that didn't work right and we fixed it. I'd be all about that. But that's where we're at on this. Moving on, this is an interesting one. eBay is demanding the identities of the e-commerce bite sources in a $100 million plus cyber stalking lawsuit. Now, you may remember over the last couple of years, we've talked about this situation on multiple occasions. There was a criminal case against eBay for the harassment of the Steiners who run e-commerce bites. There is now a civil suit because the damages that were prescribed by the court actually went to the federal government, not to the Steiners. So there is a civil lawsuit going on. And not to spoil the lead there, the judge has already ruled on this. So we'll get to that in a minute. But eBay was seeking to force the publishers of e-commerce bites, Ina and David Steiner, to disclose the identities of some of their news sources as part of their defense in cyberstalking civil lawsuit that could potentially cost the company over $100 million in damages. This has been going on for quite some time. The criminal cases, I think, have all been wrapped up, but the civil suit continues. The Steiners say their business was harmed by the harassment in part because some sources are now afraid to speak with them, which has negatively impacted their ability to continue to produce content and reporting as they had previously, which has resulted in a drop in traffic to their site and advertisers discontinuing their relationship. They are seeking $12 million in damages for alleged harm to the business, according to the court filings, but they have refused so far to provide any information that would identify those would-be sources, citing, quote, reporters' privilege, a legal doctrine through which reporters can keep information about their confidential sources private. That all sounds well and good. In response, however, eBay has said that they are seeking to force the Steiners to disclose the identity of those sources who have stopped providing information since the harassment if they want to include harm from the loss of such sources in the lawsuit, saying that refusal to reveal the sources improperly prevents the defendants from investigating the plaintiff's damages claim. If the plaintiffs wish to protect the confidentiality of their sources behind a claim of privilege, they cannot pursue theories of liability that put the identity of those sources at issue. They continue, plaintiffs are free to preserve the confidentiality of their sources, and they are free to pursue damages based on the alleged loss of those sources as a result of the Natick events, the lawyers went on to say, but they are not free to do both, is their argument. eBay says its request is limited as they only want the Steiners to reveal the identities of sources that stopped working with them, and that it would be willing to restrict any disclosure only to its outside counsel to mitigate any concerns. Color me skeptical that would be the case, but that's what they're saying that they would have done. As it stands, scrolling back up here, if you're watching on YouTube, there was an update on, I believe it was Friday. Per the clerk notes, on today's in-person hearing, Magistrate Judge Paul G. Levinson granted eBay's motion to compel the disclosure of identities of some of e-commerce bite sources without prejudice. So I don't know what the next step is. The Steiners' lawyer has not commented on this. This has obviously been an ongoing drama for quite some time, but that is the latest in that. They are being compelled at this point by the judge to disclose who were their contacts. Speaking of privacy issues, here's one. I can't say I've noticed this because I'm generally logged in and stay logged in, but the eBay login page is revealing the first name for any account, which raises, of course, some privacy concerns. Privacy-conscious eBay users are sounding the alarm about a seeming security blunder as the login screen reveals the first name associated with any account ID with no password needed. The issue was first brought up in the eBay community where users discussed the possible implications of this serious design flaw. I have discovered a privacy issue, one seller wrote in, when logging into my eBay account after entering my username. Even without inputting the password, my name becomes visible, like welcome XXX. Since usernames and store names are public, this reveals the real name of the store owner to anyone. While the flaw, at least at this time, only appears to reveal the first name, that's still a cause for concern. They write, as longtime community member, Eberton Lab, I think, points out, having your first name shown in messages rather than a generic reference like user, member, or customer has long been one point eBay provides to determine if a message supposedly comes from them is legitimate. If fraudsters are able to gain information without having to actually log into an account, that could make it easier for them to scam unsuspecting users. If you enter the username and proceed to the page where the password can be entered, the first name of the user account does appear there even before the password has been entered, and not as the result of cookies or past history on that particular computer. First names of registered users are discoverable by entering the username into the sign-in page and then proceeding on without putting in the password. Liz attempted to do this. She was able to confirm the flaw herself by using an incognito browser window. Should go without saying, she is not associated in any way with Adidas or the eBay-owned TCG player, doesn't have any knowledge of their login credentials or employees who would be named on their accounts, had never before had a reason to even attempt to log in with those IDs. But despite the lack of any connection to either of those IDs, she was able to replicate the flaw, though unlike eBay, I'll give the actual users the courtesy of blurring out their name. And then she's got a couple of screenshots here. And again, I will link to this if you want to go look at it, where she tried to log in as Adidas and it welcome back and the username, and the same with TCG Player, clearly showing the username. So let me know if you have tried this and if you've seen it. If so, I don't know if it's a glitch or if it's intentional. It is clearly not a good situation and one that eBay should undo as quickly as possible. We talked a little bit about this the other day, and on the live, there was a lot of buzz on Tuesday that eBay was going to launch some sort of fee-free selling in the US. As it turned out, we just covered all of the eBay open stuff, and conspicuous by its absence was any more mention of this fee-free selling. So what happened is a whole bunch of nothing. Primarily, this message apparently was seen by UK sellers who saw a message that attempted to get more information, but all eBay staff would say was that they know nothing. Whether that's because they truly don't know the answer or because information is being held back for a fall update, which will be coming soon, is anyone's guess. If it had simply been a technical error, they point out, it would seem easy enough to confirm that, apologize for the confusion, and move on. No matter how it eventually turns out, it's an excellent example again of eBay's lack of direct, transparent communication, which erodes seller trust and confidence in the platform. Something, she adds, that hopefully new Chief Communications Officer Gigi Janatra Duff will remedy. So no fee-free selling here in the US. Sorry, at least not yet. We'll see where this thing goes. There was some talk later in the week that this was going to be, again, UK-based, and it was just going to add some categories to the existing one of fashion that we talked about. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But as of this time, it appears to be UK only, and eBay is keeping quite mum on it. Last thing, and I did talk about this also on Wednesday, but just a quick update. The eBay for Business podcast has abruptly been discontinued. No word yet on whether Jim Griffith is actually retiring or not, but they did announce that the last episode, which aired last week, was going to be the final one. It will evolve, but they have not said into what. So be aware of that. Interestingly, this article points out they are recommending other kind of seller-based podcasts to fill in the gaps kind of in between those eBay podcasts, which I found quite interesting. Let me see if I can find the quote here. It was way down in the article. Interesting that Griff specifically encouraged listeners to seek out other podcasts hosted by eBay sellers. They have recently stepped up their support and sponsorship for content creators with exclusive events at YouTube HQ in the UK, offering expert tips for reselling influencers, and direct sponsorship of the Seller Club podcast, which is hosted by Anna Packer, Ken Gaetano, and Glenn Zubia Jr., all of whom have previously been involved with past eBay events. So The article points out skeptics have wondered if eBay is increasingly using seller partners as a buffer between the larger seller base and eBay staff, especially the higher up executives, as events are increasingly hosted by sellers and the eBay community has been left in limbo with a sharp decline in official engagement from eBay employees, most notably with the departure of community manager Brian Burke and the discontinuation of the monthly community chat earlier this year. They did also put in its place kind of an ask me anything type thing where they were going to come back and answer questions that had been posed by the seller community. That was supposed to be, I think, a quarterly thing. And if I'm not mistaken, they missed their first deadline with answers to that and really didn't answer many questions in that. So, again, situations with lack of transparency and communication from eBay. And now some discussion about whether they are kind of inserting prominent sellers, particularly those with big social media followings, into some of those roles as a buffer. You can let me know what you think of any of that. That's going to be enough about eBay for 1 week. Gosh, more than enough probably. But this is not good news either. Over on Etsy. Is Etsy lying about frequency and amounts of seller offered discounts? So this popped up just a couple of days ago. Sellers have noticed Etsy seems to have a strange habit of stretching the truth in their on-site messaging about discount frequency and amounts, and they're worried it could reflect badly on their business and create negative buyer experiences. Etsy seller and e-commerce consultant Cindy Baldassi recently posted about the issue on her Tumblr after a seller reached out to her about misleading messages added to some listings. A few weeks ago, Kat from the Etsy shop Artsy contacted her about text Etsy had added to some of her sale items. Featured in green right below the sale price, it said, quote, rarely on sale, first sale in 6+ months. Might be a good nudge to encourage orders, right? The problem was, it wasn't true. Kat regularly offers sales and was worried that her repeat customers would think she was lying to them. Baldassi then pointed to a Reddit post where other sellers were discussing the issue, also expressing concerns that buyers might believe they were being less than honest with their claims about how they discount. The seller shared a screenshot of an item with a 10% discount with an Etsy added message saying new markdown, biggest sale in 60+ days, even though they had run a 25% off sale for Labor Day. So, and there's a picture in this article of that exact situation. There is a little icon at the beginning of the message that could just be meant to grab visual attention, but it is eerily similar to icons Etsy and many other companies use to denote the use of AI, which could certainly explain why this thing is so inaccurate. And here's a good look at it. You can see kind of in that green box, the little kind of 2 stars thing, new markdown, biggest sale in 60 days. I have noticed that one shop I follow offered a 25% discount, said one user. The next weekend, it was a separate sale at 15% discount, and it listed it as the biggest sale in 60 days. I don't mind the idea. I do mind the straight up fib. Another one said they saw a listing the other day, said it was their biggest sale in 60 days when a couple days prior, the item was $1 less. I thought it was a glitch, but apparently not. It is obviously understandable why sellers would be concerned about how this will reflect on their reputations and businesses as buyers. It says may not. I can't imagine they will not believe that Etsy is responsible for adding those messages and that the information being presented is incorrect and outside of the seller's control. This is one of those fine lines. There are things that a potential buyer looks at and automatically says, you know, it's Etsy. I'm buying from Etsy. I'm not buying from an individual seller. And then there are other things like this where the exact opposite is going to be true. They would never assume that on a seller's individual listing that Etsy is inserting information, particularly inaccurate information, into that listing. So I've not looked at any of mine to see. It would be really interesting. I should do that probably. I've never run anything more than 10% off on Etsy. I should see if it says it's my biggest sale ever. I guess technically it wouldn't be a lie because it's all I've ever done over there. But let me know if you've seen that. She concludes, bigger picture, Etsy could be courting regulatory trouble for false advertising, especially if they're using artificial intelligence to generate those messages, as the FTC under Lena Khan has been particularly interested in companies engaging in what she calls deceptive practices around their use of AI. So let me know if you have seen that particular situation arise. Last thing, and this one, I will link to this. This is a really long article, and it is a really complicated one. I'm going to just hit some of the high points, but Amazon sellers have hit Walmart with a class action lawsuit alleging complicity in online organized retail crime. This, like I said, this is a really complicated one, but I thought it was worth at least bringing to your attention. A group of Amazon sellers has filed a class action lawsuit against Walmart, as well as named and unnamed fraudulent sellers, alleging the company profited from and failed to prevent a form of organized retail crime perpetrated through the Walmart marketplace. The suit levels multiple claims against Walmart, including RICO, Lanham Act, unfair competition, deceptive and unfair trade practices, consumer sales practices, and false advertising violations, all related to fraudulent sellers using Walmart Marketplace to, quote, fence items from the plaintiff's individual e-commerce businesses operated on Amazon, using a variation of the triangulation fraud that weaponizes Amazon's buyer-friendly policies against legitimate merchants. The lawsuit essentially says that Walmart allowed fraudulent seller defendants to copy and list Amazon merchants' products for purported sale on bogus Walmart marketplace seller fronts, seller catalogs, and product pages containing abjectly false information and omitting material information. Notwithstanding that, these listings were fraudulent seller storefronts. Well, who's going to put that in their listing? Hi, I'm not real. Whatever. But which contained false information as to their actual seller, the brand names for the products, and delivery. The fraudulent seller defendants did not have and or would not obtain lawful possession of these products in order to make a sale to a legitimate Walmart customer, never intended to have the goods sold to the legitimate Walmart customer be delivered by and through the fraudulent seller defendants, would place then fraudulent Amazon orders purporting to purchase those merchants' goods but request delivery to the unsuspecting legitimate Walmart customer, then intended to induce Amazon merchants into unreasonably relying on the defendant's payment in order to deliver the items where requested, and then intended to deceive those merchants again by making a false refund request with untruthful representation of non-delivery of the goods, when in actuality the legitimate Walmart customer did in fact receive the ordered product. If all of that sounds confusing, that's what I said at the beginning of this segment. That's the point. They say fraudsters who engage in this type of sophisticated digital shoplifting depend on the complexity of the scheme to make it as difficult as possible for the victims, who were legitimate sellers, to put the pieces together or to take legal actions to protect themselves. It's been described as a variation of what's commonly referred to as triangulation fraud. That is a situation where a buyer makes a genuine purchase on a third-party marketplace, in this case Walmart, but the seller fraudulently purchases the product from another merchant, in this case Amazon, and it's rampant across many of the most popular online marketplaces. Typically, the way this thing works is that the fraudster will use a stolen credit card to pay for the item to be shipped to the unsuspecting buyer, with the legitimate seller receiving a chargeback after the item has been shipped, leaving them then both out the item and the money. This one works a little bit differently, as essentially they don't even need to go through the effort of using stolen credit cards. Instead, they're taking advantage of Amazon's notoriously buyer-friendly policies to obtain refunds by falsely claiming the items are not received. And of course, Amazon also notoriously saddles the sellers on their platform with the cost of those refunds, with the same result: the legitimate seller is out the item and the money. If you're a seller on Amazon, let me know if you have seen any of this. I don't know how big this group of sellers is. Walmart obviously is making a big play into this space. We talked about last week or 2 weeks ago their addition of collectibles in an effort to kind of go after eBay's business. Clearly, they're trying to get after Amazon and others like Best Buy and so on. The complaint does go into detail that Walmart has been desperately trying to catch up to Amazon and suggests that the marketplace may have a financial incentive to look the other way on questionable accounts in an effort to onboard more new third-party sellers at breakneck speed, including many sellers from China, which appears to be a significant source of this fraud. They essentially are saying that Walmart is not doing their due diligence in vetting sellers. They're just letting anybody sign up for an account and be able to sell. And it's led to a lot of fraud, which Walmart has then capitalized on financially. So let me know what you think of that. That is a messy one. The article again is quite long. It's a very complicated situation over there, but I thought it was definitely worth something to bring to your attention. So that, my friends, is going to put a wrap on the reselling news. Let's talk about. I've got just a handful of things sold this week. I think there's only 7 or 8. So let's get into the what sold. It was I talked about it on Instagram Saturday morning. It was a week where I just never really felt in the flow for some reason. I don't know what it is. I didn't have a bad week. It just never really felt in the groove. Everything was just kind of slightly off. Listings, I'm trying to do 100. Last week I only did 80. Did sell 78, which is a little below average, but not terrible. And like I said, I think I've got 7 things to share with you here today. This first one sold over on eBay. Letters and Lettering, a treatise with 200 examples by Frank Chateau Brown. This is a hardcover from 1921. Listed and sold for $21.99 plus shipping. The order total was $28.74 for this book from the 1920s. I paid $4.27 in fees, $2 and a penny in promoted listings general fees. Shipping was $5.38. My cost of goods sold, this was part of a big buy that cost me 94 cents. So my total costs were $13.97. Net profit, $14.77. Another one over on Etsy, God's Country and My People by Wright Morris. It's a first edition illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket from 1968. If I'm not mistaken, this is about the state of West Virginia. This was part of a big estate buyout. My cost of goods sold was just 91 cents. This was listed and sold for $24.99 plus shipping. The buyer paid a total of $33.31. Again, I got double hit on the fees, the normal fees of $4.88 and the promoted fees of $2.33, $6.13 in shipping. My total cost $16.44, net profit $16.87 for God's Country and My People. Continuing on eBay, Legends of Hawaii by Patrick Collum, a 1937 Amasa Stone Mather edition of this book from published by Yale University. So this is a book about kind of mythology and people in Hawaii, written way back in the 1930s. This was a special edition of this book that was published by Yale University. This was, again, part of a big estate buyout. I'm into this one for 54 cents. I had it listed for $32.99, sold on a best offer for $25 plus shipping. The buyer paid a total of $32.73. I paid $4.80 in fees plus shipping. Cost of goods sold again, 54 cents. My total costs $13.07. I made $19.66 on this thing. Another one on eBay, another of these old classic religious books. This one probably would have been worth a lot more money if it had been in a little bit better condition. But Meyer's Commentary on the Bible, Tim through Heb Titus from 1885 from the Bible Students Library. This was a hardcover in pretty rough condition. I mean, I guess to be fair, it's from 1885. You wouldn't expect it to look brand new, but it was pretty ragged. I had it listed for 30, I think 37 or 39.99. I sent out an offer of $32.49 and sold it for that plus shipping. The buyer paid a total of $40.12. I paid $5.80 in fees, $2.81 in ad fees, $6.35 to ship this monstrous book. This was part of the old 15,000 book lot, so I was into this for only 4 cents. So I made a net profit of $25.12. Another old book. This was part of a big lot of old 1920s and 30s era romance hardcovers that I bought a couple of years ago. So this has been around for a while. Had it listed, I think, for $49.99. It was on sale for $38.49. I got an offer for $35, which I went ahead and accepted because I only own it for $1. This was Gene Bowman's Love Can Wait, a first edition hardcover in its dust jacket, published by the Hillman Curl Company back in 1937. Again, sold for $35 plus shipping. The order total was $39.63. I paid $5.73 in fees, no promoted fees. Shipping $4.63. along with my cost of goods sold, led to total costs of $11.36, leaving me with a net profit of $28.27. Another old book, another one from the big 15,000 book lot, the Handbook Descriptions and Estimates Builders Portfolios Section 2 from 1887. This was an old, really interesting old book about how you created estimates for construction work. So really interesting old piece in reasonably good condition. The cover was pretty worn. There was no information on it. So this is one of those that I took a picture of the title page for the main photo. Listed and sold for $49.99 plus shipping. The buyer paid a total of $58.87. I paid $8.32 in fees, $4.12 in promoted fees. Again, for this, cost of goods sold was just 4 cents. My total cost, $20.61. Net profit, $38.26. Neat old book. And if you've been following along for the last, it probably has been almost 2 months now. This is a book I've sold before. Fox's Book of Martyrs by Reverend John Fox from 1937. 2 volumes in one, leather illustrated edition. Really cool old book in not great shape. Sold this back in August to a customer on eBay who had made an offer on it and then decided, I think pretty much almost immediately, that they had buyer's remorse on it. They started asking me all kinds of questions about it. Literally the day they got it, they requested a return saying they found it cheaper. I had not found one of these particular 2 volume in one editions listed anywhere online, but I offer free 30-day returns. So what do? I took it back, relisted it, and sold it again this week. I had it listed for $124.99, and it sold at my 10% off offering for $112.49 plus shipping. The order total over on Etsy was $129.59. I did get crushed in fees on this one because it was purchased through the offsite ad program. So the buyer apparently saw this on Google. I paid $11.85 in regular fees, $17.79. That's brutal. $17.79, 15% in offsite ad fees to Etsy. Shipping was just $6.09. Ground Advantage, I went that route rather than Media Mail to get the $100 worth of insurance for free. So that was the better option. This was part of a big lot of antique books. I'm only into it for 91 cents, so my total costs were $47.61. This time around, I netted $81.98 on it. In the previous sale over on eBay, my original net was $93 and some change. Obviously, I paid return shipping of a little over $6, so all in on this, I probably made about $75. Which is still a pretty nice hit, a 91-cent investment that turns into $75. But the $93 over on eBay would have been a lot more fun, to say the least. But there you go. It is what it is. The book is sold again and is on its way to its new home, courtesy of apparently Google and Etsy. So again, as always, that's going to put a wrap on things. I hope you got something out of this. And if you did, please do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Feel free to comment if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening on Spotify, you can now leave comments over there as well. Let me know what you thought of any of the reselling news or any of these items that were sold this week. As always, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me this week. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.